Tonight on KGW News, to mask or not to mask? The new recommendation Multnomah County officials have for residents as COVID cases rise.
Also tonight,
they take away your feeling of safety in your house.
A burglar tears through a family home and steals much more than just their sense of security.
He always said, you keep this for the next generation again.
But first, we're digging deep into the KGW archives for this one. How Portland State is honoring these historic anti-war protests more than 50 years later. Your news starts now. And we are starting with breaking news where Portland police are investigating a shooting in southeast Portland. You're looking at a live picture of a scene. This is near southeast Flavelle Street. The call came in about 9:15 tonight. Our photographer on the scene told us roads are closed between 82nd and 92nd Avenue. We were just listening in. The public information officer told us the only person they know hurt so far is the suspect, an adult male who was sent to the hospital with a gunshot wound. Unclear how he was shot. They believe he was shooting at other people, but they haven't found anyone else injured. They did enact a reverse 911 call system to residents in the area, telling them to shelter in place. That lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. That has since been lifted. The Special Emergency Reaction Team, or CERT, is involved in this investigation. This is a developing story, and we will update you when more information becomes available. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. 52 years ago, hundreds of Portland State University students became part of a national movement protesting the Vietnam War, along with the killing of 4 Kent State University students by the Ohio National Guard.
And today, on the anniversary of the day, riot police here sent 31 students and faculty to the hospital. Those who stood their ground returned to reflect and remember. Here's Alma McCarty.
It was May 11th, 1970, when the Portland Tactical Police Squad clashed with peaceful PSU students and faculty. That month, students nationwide were on strike.
We actually believe we could slow the killings in Vietnam down a little bit. We hope that our efforts helped.
Even more joining the anti-war movement on May 4th, after 4 students were killed and nearly a dozen more injured by the Ohio National Guard at Kent State University.
It was spontaneous. The moment anybody heard about it, they left their class, they walked out, they were milling around, looking for something to do.
Kathy Wood-Wyrick.
What do we do now? We're angry. What do we do?
And Doug Weiskopf.
It all happened so quickly.
Were members of the PSU strike committee.
We joined with the national student strike and occupied the park blocks for a week while barricading the surrounding streets.
A lot of the people involved in the PSU strike were veterans of Vietnam.
Then, on May 11th, Portland leaders dispatched riot police to the park blocks to take down the strikers' hospital tent.
We feared for our lives, but peacefully stood our ground.
When 100 protesters refused to yield, officers attacked.
31 students, women and men, were sent to the hospital with injuries, and we quickly began organizing for a march the following morning, numbering 4,000 angry PSU students and faculty members to march on Portland City Hall to peacefully protest the police attack of May 11th.
More than 50 years later.
I wanted to set the record straight so that going forward, people would know what really happened.
By dedicating a plaque in the place it happened to ensure it becomes a permanent part of history.
I like to think it's not just something for people who were there at the time, but people who were there at the time. It was a turning point. It was something brave to do.
Dozens gathered in remembrance, looking back and looking ahead.
Things aren't going so well in the world, and we're hoping this is a little bit hopeful, that if people step out and start working again, maybe we can turn things around.
An important piece of history.
I'm here with my daughter.
Highlighted and preserved for future generations.
She told me she was proud of me, and that made everything worth it.
And in talking with the alumni and listening to the speeches this afternoon, some of their advice passed down to demonstrators now, the importance of staying organized and remaining nonviolent. Laurel?
So important to remember what happened more than 5 decades ago. Thank you, Alma. Now let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines. Multnomah County health officials are urging people to wear masks again indoors until cases and hospitalizations drop back down across the state. They do want to emphasize this is not a mandate, but they're asking everyone to put their mask back on for a few weeks as they go to school, work, and other indoor events. This comes as health officials see rising cases in schools and among school-aged children and teens. At last check, OHA reported an average of nearly 1,300 new cases over the last week. The trend is similar to the number of cases we saw in February when the Omicron variant began to slow down.
New tonight, Beaverton police have now ruled the death of a 13-year-old girl as a homicide. Milana Lee was reported missing Sunday evening. Her body was found in a park on Tuesday afternoon. Now, Lee was a 6th grader at Conestoga Middle School. Anyone with information here is asked to contact Beaverton police.
And new details on a shooting that happened at a drum circle. Court documents say the suspect, 25-year-old Wyatt Belcher, casually walked away after fatally shooting Ashley Marie Smith. Smith was part of a drum circle in the East Bank Esplanade parking lot that was leaving about 11:30 Sunday night when police say Belcher shot at Smith just a few feet away from the group. They also don't believe Belcher and Smith knew each other prior to the shooting. Belcher was later arrested on the Hawthorne Bridge and now faces murder and unlawful use of a firearm charges.
Well, let us return to the conversation about Oregon's Measure 110, the first in the nation law that decriminalizes small amounts of hard drugs. Now, earlier this week, you heard from a sheriff's deputy who says the change has fueled a surge of deadly pills and violence. Tonight, we're going to hear from an insider who is pushing back on that perspective. Pat Doris talked to her earlier on the story.
And when drugs are imported,
Morgan Godwin supports the laws created by Measure 110 and believes it has nothing to do with more fentanyl on the streets of the greater Portland area.
So there have been record-breaking law enforcement seizures of these fake fentanyl pills all the way from Arizona to Alaska. They are becoming the most predominant illicit opioid all across the American West. Oregon is not exempt from this national trend, but it is not unique.
And decriminalizing the small amount of drugs, you don't think that that had anything to do with bringing more drug dealers in or having more drugs available on the streets of Portland?
Drug dealing is still very much a crime. And only 1 day's worth of user amount is even decriminalized. So say if someone who uses drugs purchased 2 days worth, that's still a misdemeanor.
In other words, no. She thinks Portland is too small to make a difference in the big scheme of things.
The cartel does not care that we decriminalize drugs. It could be criminalized again tomorrow. They wouldn't care at all. The only thing that would upset them is if we emphasize safe supply or expanded medications for opioid use disorder, because that would cut into their bottom line.
Godwin feels strongly about the criminal justice system in no small part because of her involvement in it. She said she volunteered to go to jail after being arrested for drugs, then was denied her medicine.
And they made me kick cold turkey in an open dorm with fluorescent lights that never turned off, vomiting in a trash can in front of 77 other people. Why? For what? I had asked for help. I had leaned into the criminal justice system thinking it was there to help me, and instead it betrayed me.
As an insider now on the statewide Measure 110 Oversight Council, she knows better than most that the rollout of the treatment part of the new law has been slow. The treatment programs will be paid for with marijuana tax money, but hardly any of that money has been allocated yet. Why has it taken so long?
Yeah, so, bureaucracy. Oregon has layers and layers of bureaucracy. This was something that had never been done before, so there were a lot of unforeseen hiccups. I was very frustrated by the process. I felt that the Oregon Health Authority didn't always support us in the ways that they could have, but they were also experiencing staffing shortages.
One more perspective on the issue there. For an in-depth look at the big stories of the day and our time, be sure to check out the story that's each weekday at 6 right here on KGW.
A much anticipated 4th of July event has been canceled in Vancouver. The annual fireworks show at Fort Vancouver canceled because of the increased risk of fires and understaffing. Instead, the city's Historic Trust Events Director said they'll be holding the first ever Summerfest. It will include live music, games, and a movie in the park. That will start at 11 in the morning on Sunday, July 3rd at Vancouver National Historic Reserve.